Hello everyone, it's Shannon here for Honeybee Stamps. In today's video, we are going to combine ink blending with markers to color these beautiful magnolias created with the new Lovely Layers Magnolia dies. Let's start with the florals. I have the Lovely Layers Magnolias die here. This is a layering die set, and there are 4 layers for the flower. I went ahead and die cut those out of white cardstock. Now I'm going to do some simple ink blending, starting with shaded lilac. I'm just going to lightly ink blend the center of each one of these layers. Magnolias are primarily white, but we're going to incorporate light colors to add a little bit more interest and depth. Now moving on to Kitsch Flamingo, and I'm going to ink blend the sides of the petals just very lightly with this Kitsch Flamingo. And I'm going to do this on all of the petals, but mainly only the petals that have the score lines on them are the ones that are really going to be seen. But I'm still going to ink blend all of the petals on one side with this Kitsch Flamingo, just because when I kind of lift up these petals later, you might see that under petal, and I don't want it to be stark white. Now we're going to move on to the marker part. I have a Copic marker here. This is B60. It's a very light purple, and I'm going to start from the center and do a feathered stroke out on really only the petals that have these score lines. I might do a couple additional petals for the same reasons I mentioned earlier, but mainly you have to definitely get those petals that have some of the score lines on them or the cut lines on them. And I'm just kind of feather stroking out from the center to add some more shading, but also some texture. This will really add some more interest to these petals. Now we're moving on to our second marker. This is RV11, it's a pink, and just like when we ink blended on the sides of the petals with the Kitsch Flamingo, we're going to color on the sides of the petals with this purple mark or this pink marker. And this is just going to add some more color and start to make these petals look a little bit cupped, kind of like you're seeing the underside a little bit or the backside of the magnolia flower, which the backside of the flower could sometimes be a pink color. So once I finish all of, and again, you want to kind of focus on coloring the petals with the score lines. I do color more petals, but those are the ones you definitely have to color. Now we're moving on to these centers, the flower centers, starting with the larger piece here, ink blending it with Twisted Citron. Then I'll ink blend a little bit with peeled paint to kind of create a gradation, and then finish up with a tiny bit of pine needles, again, just kind of making that gradation on that larger center piece. Now we're moving on to the second layer. I'm going to start with Spice Marmalade, ink blend kind of the top, and then I'll finish with Rusty Hinge and ink blend the bottom of this layer. So there's only 2 layers for the flower center, and this little piece here, once I finish, will just go right on top. Now we're going to move on to one of the leaves. I die cut 5 in total, but 3 of them are going to be green like this, where I start with peeled paint, and then I move on to pine needles and ink blend the other half and create this little gradation, this 2-tone gradation over the leaf. And once I finish the leaf with that green combo, I'm going to use some Copic markers to add details, just like we did with the flower. Starting with a dark green here, this is G28, and I'm coloring alongside the vein, not coloring directly on the vein. I want to keep that vein light, and then I'll kind of branch out from the vein to add some shading on the sides. Now I moved to the middle of this leaf, so I have a different color. That was YG67, and then we'll finish up with YG03 for our lightest shade, and that will just add some more texture and depth to the leaf. Now the leaves that I'm not going to ink blend green and color with Copics, I'm going to ink blend just with this Rusty Hinge, just do a little gradation over them. I do 2 like this just because magnolia leaves actually on the underside are kind of brown like that. Now we're going to put together our flower, starting with the largest layer and working my way up to the smallest, just doing a little bit of glue in the center and gluing all those layers down. Then I'll glue my center piece together, add a little foam adhesive to the back side of it. Then I will remove the backing and stick it right down on my magnolia, and that will actually complete my flower. I am fluffing up the petals a little bit here. You can actually do that once it's on the card and all done, which is actually works out a little bit better. So here I went ahead and finished a second flower and did the rest of the ink blending on my leaves. Now I have an A2 tough folding white card base, and I'm going to splatter some of this black Gonzai Tombi watercolor On the upper left and lower right sides of this card front, that is going to add some nice interest to our background. While that's drying, I'm going to stamp a sentiment. I have the inside Welcome Baby stamp set, and I just pulled off the congratulations. I'm thinking this card is going to be kind of a wedding card, and congratulations works perfect for that. I inked it up in the Embossing and Watermark ink, dipped it into some white embossing powder, and now I'm just heat setting with my heat tool. Once I've heat set that, I'll then grab the coordinating die, line it up, and then run it through my die cutting machine to have this perfectly die cut sentiment. I love that. Now we have all our parts ready to put this card together. I'm just going to arrange my magnolias and my leaves around kind of in the center. Once I get it kind of arranged, I will then pick it up with a piece of press and seal, pick up all those leaves and the 2 flowers. Once I have it all picked up, I'll flip it over, and then I'm going to add liquid glue to the center of the flowers and just to the backside of the leaves so I can kind of pop them up too. Then I'll flip my press and seal back over, center it, and then place it down. Then I'll hold it here for a second and then carefully remove that press and seal so I don't shift any of those flowers or leaves. Now we just have our sentiment here, and I'm going to double up the foam adhesive for the right side of the sentiment here. So I cut 2 really thin strips of foam adhesive, stacked them on top of each other, and I'm going to adhere that onto the right side of my sentiment, and then I'm going to add a little 1 layer of foam adhesive to the left side because it kind of rests on those stacked petals, so it just needed 1 layer to kind of balance it out. Now I'm going to kind of fluff up my petals, and that will actually complete the card here. I'll hold it to the camera so you can get a good look at these beautiful magnolias. Even though they are primarily white, the light color that we did add so much depth. They look so buttery and creamy and smooth. I love the way the Copics and the ink blending really worked together beautifully on these flowers. And it finished up with some bold leaves, like the contrast of the brown on the kind of showing the underside of the leaves as well. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you have any questions about the products I used, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.